Hello and welcome to Going Over Our Breads. This is episode 2 of the Christmas Gauntlet. Sitting across from me, as always, is Meredith.
And sitting across from me is Kennedy.
If you are just tuning in, each week we will be watching another Christmas movie, and each week the IMDb rating of that Christmas movie will be lower than the one that came before it. So we're approaching the nadir. What did we watch this week? This is the second best one we're going to watch, according to IMDb standards.
We watched A Christmas in Royal Fashion, which was from 2018.
Now, you could have told me this movie was from any time in the last 20 years. This is pretty much just fill out the form of the Christmas movie, and this is the Christmas movie.
One might call that timeless.
You might also call this the production company of Sullivan and Schneck had an idea for a story, and Fred Olen Ray banged out a script in an afternoon. And it's the same thing that happened with, which is going to happen with most of these movies. It's the same 3 writers credited on all of them.
Great. Love it.
But anyway, how does this movie start, Ms. Meredith?
It starts with the time-honored tradition of Fred Olen Ray. We get a lot of context in some title cards. And this one reads, once upon a time, in the quaint little town of Los Angeles, town spelled with an E.
Old-timey.
Yep. Then we cut to some shots of LA buildings with Christmassy decorations, notably streetlights that are actually chandeliers encased in plastic. Amazing. More on that later. Then the title cards start again. A young office assistant named Kristen struggled to balance all the responsibility from her very ambitious boss, Melanie. She secretly dreamed of becoming someone important and falling in love.
Those are the secret dreams people have, you know. You don't want anybody to know that you want to fall in love or advance in your career.
It's so weird for a person who's young, you know?
I think Young is doing a little bit of heavy lifting here, too.
Very heavy.
It's she is 35.
Yes.
Kristen is played by an actor named Cindy Busby.
Who was definitely 35 at the filming.
I mean, she was born in 83, so
like... Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, so the math says she's 34 to 35, yeah. She is a Canadian actor. She's from Montreal. And she seems to make about 7 or 8 Hallmark movies a year, mostly romance and Christmas, and even a whole genre of romance movies I've never even considered before, which are National Parks romance series, like Romance in Zion National Park and that sort of thing. She's a real specialist in sort of this. But if you're Canadian, you might know her. She was on a long-running Canadian show called like Homeland or Homefront or probably something less Nazi-ish than that. But she played a mean girl in the first 4 seasons of that show, which has been running for 18 years. But since we're Americans, we've never heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you look on her Wikipedia page, it says her big break came when she was filming a TV show about a Canadian doctor who was a big hero. And it was filmed in rural China. And I'm like, wait a second. Why is this Canadian medical show being filmed in rural China? The doctor in question is a guy named Norman Bethune, who is a hero to the Communist Party of China.
What?
And for whom Mao Zedong wrote a letter eulogizing him and talking about how great he was before he became Chairman Mao. So...
How?
He was a big proponent of socialized medicine back in the old turn of the century, basically. And he fought with the communist side of the Spanish Civil War, and then went on to help the communists in China. So I don't know if our lead actor here is now or has ever been a member of the Communist Party, but her name is Cindy Busby, and she does TV movies, and we'll have a small part here in an episode or 2 of Supernatural, and that's about it.
Incredible. Wait, she was in Supernatural?
Yeah, but she played Jenny Klein in 2 episodes. It's not. I mean, there are 45,000 episodes of Supernatural. I think you and I have probably been in 3 episodes each.
No. I did watch all 15 seasons. The last one was kind of a okay, we're going to get through it, team. We're going to make it. Okay. Well, in this movie, it's Christmas time. We know this because the establishing shots of LA were evidently done during actual Christmas time. The decorations are, on point, beautiful. No kind of faking a summer Christmas. And I'm going to give some context about the plot up front because it took me the entire movie to really understand what was going on, and I don't want to do the beat by beat here. So
okay.
Here's the situation. Each year, The Kingdom of Edgemore presents a Christmas festival that represents the charity and goodwill of Christmas worldwide. This year is the 10th annual Christmas Fashion Festival, and that festival will be presented by Carson Designs, which is a clothing designer. Carson Designs is based in Beverly Hills, California.
And none of our people work for Carson. They work for the PR firm.
Yes.
That instead. So yeah, it's a surprisingly complicated story for a character, or for a movie that has 10 characters in it at most.
It's a waste of breath to wonder why Edgemore is hyper-fixated on Beverly Hills, but let's move on. Okay, opening shot of the movie. We are seeing like a photo shoot. There's a grumpy woman taking photos of a model in this old Christmassy scene. So this is just establishing that Melanie, our grumpy photographer, is the boss of the PR firm that Carson Designs hired to help pull off the fashion festival. She's really like micromanaging because she's not the photographer. She's just like shat all over the photographer. It's like, that's how you do it. I'm like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Hire somebody who does your vision better. I don't know.
Melanie is one of the better actors in the movie, which isn't saying much. She was Dana in A Christmas in Vermont, our lead character's only friend who she barely knew, who saved the day at the end.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And she does have a little bit of a Siri quality to her voice always, but she's a little better in this. And then the photographer is Josh, who's played by a guy named Jason Cook, who has been in like 15,000 episodes of Days of Our Lives. Even though he is from New Jersey, he's doing the whole thing with a cowboy accent for some reason.
Well, he's out in California, where the cowboys are.
Yeah. The 49ers are in San Francisco and the Cowboys are in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
The cattle are in those hills. I think that's an expression, right? Oh, there's gold in them. They're hills.
With the cattle.
Yeah.
All right, so we've established like grumpiness and like Kristen's there. Like, okay, whatever. They all work there. No big deal. Then we make a pivot back to the title cards. It's just like the longest intro ever. Title cards go on to say, meanwhile, halfway around the world, there lived a very handsome but reckless young man, Prince Patrick of Edgemore, who was desperately seeking a special someone to help give his life meaning.
And again, Young is doing a little bit of heavy lifting once again here, because this guy is about our age. His name is Jerman Murtaugh. He actually is not faking his accent here. He was on some Vikings, and I think he's right now in the new episodes of Outlander. So, I mean...
Oh, no kidding. Nice. Good
yeah,
fun.
like that's kind of like the lowest level these British people have, right, is Outlander.
It's filmed in Scotland. That's all I really know. So it seems like another Doctor Who where every local actor is like, yes, sign me up.
Yeah, and he was also in... it was like a sixth build character in that Dracula Untold. When they tried to do one of the dark universes, one of the 15 launches they attempted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was in the one where, what if Dracula's the hero of the story? So
amazing. Well, we are establishing kind of the beautiful Edgemore. And then there's this aerial shot of the Liechtenstein Castle, which I've been to. So I was pulling like a Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV moment. I was like, I know that place.
Do you think they got permission to film there? You don't think they just paid $5
for a drone or something? I don't know.
No, I think that's probably stock. Like it's prevalent, right?
Oh, sure.
He has a drawer full of stock footage. Like he's fine.
You're right. It's a beautiful castle. If you go to Stuttgart, it is a short-ish train ride to the castle. Anyhow, we cut to inside the castle to see that the prince has appeared on the cover of like some porn magazine or something like that.
Yeah, it's For Him magazine, but it's FMH, so it's For Men magazine. I don't know.
So he's playing around, and his father, King Frederick, is not happy. So we're seeing the confrontation where King Frederick is like, you gotta straighten up and fly right, and I've got a punishment for you. So, like, who's King Frederick?
Basically, no. Like, he's been in a bunch of, like, no-budget movies. I don't think anybody would recognize him from anything. He's a very small part in big movies and a very small part in small movies as well. Mostly, I was just watching him. He's a very bottom tooth talker, and his bottom teeth were a little crookedy, so I was just looking at that the whole time. do we meet the manservant at this point or whatever?
Yeah, Albert's in the room.
Now, Albert might look familiar to people because he was in the first season of The Witcher. He played Mouse Sack, who sounds like a bad guy, but I don't think he ended up being a bad guy. The Witcher was, all out of order and just a confusing mess of mythology, so I never knew what the fuck was happening at any point, and it never really mattered anyway. But that's what you get when you base a Netflix series on a video game based on, like, a series of novels that aren't in English, and then it's...
Oh, Plato would have some severe words about that.
It's real purple monkey dishwasher action going on here, I think.
Wow. All right. Okay, well, Albert's there. He's got some interesting eyes, like Peter Capaldi eyes. But essentially, the prince is getting punished. He's got, like, a last chance to prove himself in his father's eyes. It's not important. The important bit is he needs to fly to America and host the 10th Christmas Fashion Festival in person instead of their usual ambassador that they would send. And Albert is there to babysit him along the way and make sure that he actually, like, does what he's supposed to do.
The same thing that we had in pretty much all of the royal Christmas movies we've had. They always have, like, one dude follow them around and bounce off of.
Exactly. All right, so back in Beverly Hills, there's a lot of, like, kind of nothing going on. We kind of meet Dan Carson. He, it's like, I'm paying you to do good work. And Melanie's like, I've got to do good work. And then Kristen's like, I'm ambitious and I want to do good work. This is where we meet another employee of the PR firm named Jill.
Oh, Jill, yeah. Jill is the villain of this movie. Jill
is what?
Jill is 100% the villain of this movie. We'll talk about that later. But
okay.
Jill doesn't have a picture on IMDb, and I'm like, but she looks familiar to me, and she looks familiar to me because she was the mom in A Princess for Christmas. Gosh, I think she's been in a couple of these Fred Olin Christmas movies, and pretty much, if you don't recognize an actor in this movie, they have been in a bunch of David Dakota movies on Lifetime. That's pretty much everybody's IMDb on this was they make, the wrong stepmother, the wrong cheerleader, and all of these women thriller movies directed by gay icon David Dakota.
Incredible.
Oh, and I want to circle back to Carson is our big celebrity of this movie.
Is he?
Yes, and I use big in the strongest quotes possible because Carson is played by Michael Pare, who is, I really want to call him the poor man's Eric Roberts, which is really saying something because Eric Roberts answers the phone, yes, I will, and is the voice of the talking cat in A Talking Cat, ? Apostrophe ? But Michael Pare, he was in a bunch of stuff in the 80s, like The Philadelphia Experiment and, one of the other ones, Streets of Fire, the Walter Hill movie that's kind of like a gangster musical. I think most people might recognize him. He is the husband of Sandra Bullock at the beginning of Hope Floats. But nowadays, he mostly just makes stuff like this. And, he's basically in asylum-level movies where he is in the red box equivalent of the blockbuster. So, like, he's in Top Gunner Danger Zone.
Amazing.
It's not quite Top Gun, but it's got the Danger Zone in there, so it's probably going to be good, right, guys?
Is Danger Zone on the soundtrack of that movie?
No, they can't afford the rights to that.
Oh, God. All right. Well, Dan Carson, who I definitely did not recognize, Dan's a good guy because he really appreciates the work that Melanie does as his PR firm. And they're having a business lunch and he says, hey, I got you a Christmas gift. Basically, it's a referral. Melanie's like, oh my God, this is amazing. He's like, there's a catch. You need to take the red eye tonight to Boston to meet with him tomorrow morning. And Melanie's like, what? But she needs to take the opportunity because it's too good to pass up. She goes right to Kristen and she's like, hey, I'm getting out of town. Here's the reason why. I need you to greet the ambassador for Edgemore and take care of my dog.
Oh, yeah. I completely forgot. There's a dog in this movie for no reason.
Well, the reason is to get Kristen into Melanie's house.
Yeah, that's true. But Kristen takes special time to say, like, don't worry, it's just an ambassador. You don't have to worry about any royalty or anything like that. Cut to immediately the prince is landing with his manservant, Albert, or I don't even think his royal vizier. I don't know what they call him.
Butler?
His butler. When a butler stay with the house, he would be a valet.
Oh, okay. So the valet, Albert.
Yeah.
which is okay. So this is where we're set up. Melanie is out of the picture. She's basically house sitting now because she's like taking care of the dog, hanging out with Jill. They have some conversations about how Kristen just really wants to do a good job. She's so earnest. Great, whatever. Who cares?
Yeah.
The dog is a medium-sized white kind of dog named Falcor.
Yeah, Falcor is a great name for a dog. I don't know if it's named after the Never-Ending Story or the people who sing Rock Me Amadeus. Was that was Falco, maybe?
That was Falco.
That was Falco. Okay. But
so
anyway,
Falcor is the animal. This dog has a mohawk.
This dog has a mohawk, yeah. It's on its whole body, too. It's like a mohawk all the way down, but we don't notice it first because the dog is wearing a sweater.
Yeah, that's weird. For no reason. They like have this very stylish dog and nothing comes of it.
Well, they probably had something in the script, but they couldn't get a trained dog. And it's like, nope, sorry, that would have taken more than 3 hours. We're gonna replace you with a kid.
Incredible. All right, okay. So Patrick and Albert have landed. They're on their way. Melanie wakes up and she's like, I want to make a really good impression on the ambassador. I'm going to borrow an outfit from Melanie's closet. So she does. So she looks like she's had a glow up.
Kirsten borrows from Melanie, yeah, without permission.
Without permission. She's just talking to herself in the closet like, I'm sorry, Melanie. I just wanted to do such a good job. Whatever.
She talks to herself and talks to the dog this entire movie.
She gets a phone call from Melanie. Melanie is snowed in Boston. Logan Airport is shut down. So she's like, you know what? Hey, it's just the ambassador. I got this. We got this. It's fine, Melanie. Just enjoy being snowed in or whatever. There is a comedic misunderstanding when she meets the so-called ambassador. The prince and Albert are like, oh, this is Melanie. This is like the head of the PR firm. Great. Awesome. You will entertain the prince for the next few days until the festival and everything is going wonderfully.
Okay, so first off, when they all meet, Kirsten goes to shake Albert's hand thinking that he's the ambassador, even though he's standing in the back, and she does the mistaken identity first, and they immediately correct it. And then he mistakenly identifies her as Melanie, and before she has the chance to correct it, Jill, the villain of this movie, says, oh yes, this is Melanie. Definitely Melanie. You should talk to her as though she's Melanie. Why? There's no reason.
So as to not insult the prince by having a lowly, young office assistant as his entertainment instead of the head of the firm.
But it's a firm of 3 people.
Yeah, totally. It's weak. I mean, a better lie would have been Kristen is not an office assistant, but like is Melanie's number 2, like right-hand person. That would have been a much better lie. But then we wouldn't have the movie. So
there's probably other stuff that happens. But the first thing that I remember happening is her entertaining him is like, he's like, well, I want to go see the ocean. And she's like, yeah. The ocean? Why would you want to see the ocean? We're in LA. And I'm like, wait, what? Yeah, the water's right there. You're in California. That's what you do in California. And he's like, and I want some sandwiches. And then she introduces him to like a fucking Subway spicy Italian sandwich. Yeah. Like it's the most exotic thing in the world.
He like opens it up. He's like, what is this?
This is a submarine sandwich since we're out by the ocean. See how thematically appropriate it is? I was like, what? Don't eat any like fish tacos or anything like that. Just go to the Jersey Mike's out on the gas station and get them a sub.
Yeah, exactly. So that's super dumb. They're falling in love for unknown reasons.
Well, I mean, they're both 6s. So, that's why they're falling in love.
Oh, okay. All right. And they're both in their mid-30s and really ready to settle down, which I guess that's all you really need is to be ready. So next stop on the entertainment tour is showing the prince around the festival venue. And while she's doing that, a different character named Mary pops up, hands a red envelope to Kristen, and then pops away again.
I don't even remember Mary in this.
She's not important. She's got a line, so she got paid.
And she had a red envelope? What do we even have?
Oh, yeah. So the red envelope contains Kristen's Christmas buddy match for the year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a big sister program or something like that.
Something like I used to work at a place that did something similar. Like around Christmas time, there's a lot of companies that say like, all right, you're giving gifts to people. We'll match you up with a child. Kristen has been matched with a child who's currently in the children's hospital because she's severely ill and she's got no family. It's very, very, very sad. Okay.
Cancer orphan is now part of the...
Cancer orphan. That's exactly right.
But
okay.
They can't tell you what she's sick with because of HIPAA. But, but it's a little girl in a wig.
Kristen's like, all right, I got to go take care of this. But the prince is like, I'll go with you.
I love cancer orphans. And they like drop in. They talk to... They see a woman behind the desk and they're like, you must be a nurse. Where is this little girl? And that actor, I don't remember her name or anything like that, but she's another one who has been in like 75 David Dakota movies where, Vivica A. Fox has to stab somebody. I don't know what goes on in those movies. But then they go and they talk to the kid for like 3 minutes and they're like, well, anyway, we're really busy and I'm sure you've got to go too. So we're going to peace out of here.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't think that Kristen introduces herself to the little girl because of the whole mistaken identity thing. Like, if there was a whole thing there, that could have been what we call a scene where she has tension between, this little girl and introducing herself honestly and trying to keep her up her ruse for no reason. So there you go.
Skip to the next day. It's a photo shoot and Christmas tree lighting ceremony. That's what's going on today. There's a lot of publicity because we are a publicity firm and we're hyping up the fashion show. Josh, our photographer from the beginning, is taking photos of a few women. We've got like a sexy Santa, sexy elves. This gives him the opportunity to eavesdrop on incoming Prince and Albert. And he comes to the fact that they think that Kristen is Melanie. So he files this information away for later.
Yeah, he's really scheming because he's got it out for her for some reason. Are they ex-lovers? She doesn't. No. He's a photographer, so he can't advance over her to get a better career.
I mean, he might dislike her on a personal level, but there's no reason for this.
Yeah, but he's scheming, but he's kind of also in the right then, too. Maybe his motives are like, wow, she's lying and lies are bad.
Maybe. Meanwhile, Kristen's in a different dress from Melanie because, hey, it's the next day and Melanie's closet is so full.
Exactly. I hope she pays for her dry cleaning.
She'd better. Well, anyway, Jill sees oh, you're fully committing. Stay out of the photos. You don't want Melanie to see you in the photos later. And Kristen's like, got it. So we'd have a Christmas photo shoot montage. Nothing comedic or anything. It's not like Kristen's comedically trying to get out of the way of the photographer. No, none of that. Just a photo montage. After Jill's warning and after the montage is done, the Christmas tree lighting ceremony is televised. It's not a photography thing anymore. We've got video cameras. This is on the news.
Yeah, because, the big news story of people lighting a 6-foot-tall artificial tree outside. And it's on the news in Boston. I think it's on a fake TMZ sort of thing, though, which also why?
Something like that. Yeah, it's basically national news for reasons. Josh calls Melanie and says, put it on the TV. So Melanie gets to see that not only is the prince himself there instead of an ambassador, but that Kristen's wearing her clothes. So she's livid. And wouldn't you know it, magically, Logan Airport opens right up and she's on the next plane back.
Yeah, she was able to melt the snow with her rage and immediately pop back out. I mean, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. At this point, Kristen is feeling very bad about the lie. She's trying to come clean. Meanwhile, Albert and Jill seem to be striking up a romance of their own. And they're like, hee, and running off together.
Yeah, that's a whole bit of subtext that is not developed really at all.
Yeah, there's no payoff.
No.
At dinner, and remember, Kristen is just her job is to show the prince a good time. He's there to be entertained. So she is taking him out to dinner, and there's dancing at this restaurant, of course. And as they go in for their first kiss, they are interrupted by Josh, who's like, guess who's here? And he points to Melanie, and it all comes crumbling down.
And well, Melanie is completely justified at this point, right?
Yeah. She handles herself pretty well, I thought.
Yeah, she's pretty restrained. I mean, also because she's not a big actor or anything like that, she is pretty restrained. And she fires Kristen, which again, identity theft is not a laughing matter, Jim. And, she completely ruins this evening of all these people who are dancing in the dentist's office or wherever they are in this one. This entire movie looks like it was filmed in a dentist's office. So,
Okay, so the end result here is Kristen leaves. She's crying. Melanie is trying to salvage the situation with Patrick. She's like, hey, I'm very sorry about that. We can continue dinner, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I'm going to decline dinner. Also, Kristen did a bad thing. I feel really bad about it, blah, blah, blah. But did you have to fire her at Christmas?
that is actually a moment of setup and payoff. Because at the beginning of the movie, I don't even remember the context.
Yeah.
But our hero says, nobody wants to be fired around Christmas time.
Oh, I didn't catch it.
Yeah, that was foreshadowing, and that was a brilliant bit of foreshadowing, because every other time of the year, people really enjoy being fired, but not before Christmas.
I mean, it is extra cruel. It is.
This might be the most, and also it's Christmas movie we've watched for this podcast. I guess maybe you'd only visit the Christmas orphans or the cancer orphans for Christmas, and they do give out presents in a little bit, or maybe that was a second scene. I don't remember.
It was a different scene, but
That's
yeah,
a different scene, yeah.
There are charitable programs that happen throughout the year to sponsor children, but this one was during Christmas. Yeah, you're right. This definitely happens at Christmas, but could have happened any other time.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a complete aside. Do you remember there was an episode of News Radio where Matthew joined the Big Brother program, but he was also assigned a Big Brother? So they were just two guys hanging out.
Why?
I don't know. And then Matthew just naturally assumed the role of the little brother because he was played by Andy Dick and a weird, effeminate little guy. Anyway, I'd rather be watching News Radio is what I'm saying.
More scenes happen. Nothing is really rises to the level where we need to talk about it. But essentially we learned that Albert kind of knew for some time, not all along, but he already knew about the deception.
So everybody but the prince knew, which is kind of, I would fire Albert for that maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, because you need to be able to trust your closest colleagues, especially in a royal family. So it's like this blending of personal and professional. Albert's on Kristen's side. He's like, hey, you guys really like each other. I was so happy to see you happy. And Patrick's like, that's weird. Because it's weird. Okay. Yeah. Kristen, unemployed, but still trying to be a good person, and goes back to the children's hospital. She's got another gift for Amy. It's a book called A Prince for Christmas.
We saw that movie.
In return, Amy, the child, gives Kristen a gift. And that gift is the knowledge that the prince really likes Kristen. Likes her. All right. Meanwhile, Dan Carson comes along. He's in town now. He wants to meet and greet the prince. Patrick takes the opportunity now to advocate to Dan to try and save Kristen's job. Dan, who hired the PR firm and has no authority whatsoever over roles. Dan gives a knowing smile and a wink. He's like, I know why you're really interested in doing good things for Kristen. Maybe there's another way you can help her out.
Yeah, that's almost exactly the dialogue, yeah.
And this is kind of disjointed. I'm starting to feel like other movies that we have watched, like Alienator, where it was a lot of and then going back to these other characters, this thing happened. And meanwhile, some other thing is happening. So it just feels kind of disjointed to me.
Patrick visits Amy, right? In the hospital? Is that the next?
It does. Okay. No.
There's more scenes? Okay.
There's more scenes, yeah. All right, let me speed through it real quick. So, because it doesn't come to anything. It's a lot of
it's a lot of, and then this happened, and then this happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're in the evening now. Jill and Albert, they are at the PR firm. Kristen is packing up, and they're trying to console her. Melanie overhears this conversation. Kristen's back on her older refrain of I just wanted to do a good job. And you can see that Melanie's starting to feel bad, but she does not take any action. She just kind of walks away feeling kind of bad. Now, Prince Patrick goes to the hospital with a stack of maybe 3 gifts for Amy.
Yeah, and they pass them out to all the children at the children's hospital, but he didn't bring enough gifts. So there's one girl who's sad over by the side. So Amy, in the true spirit of Christmas, gives away her gift to the even sadder little girl and gives an important life lesson to Patrick, who at this point is already trying to save Kristen's job and doesn't really need it.
So Amy's gift to Patrick is he better go tell Kristen that he loves her because our time in the world is limited.
Okay, and here comes the creepiest scene in this movie. Patrick's like, wow, how old are you anyway? And the little girl says, I'm old enough. And I'm like, what? No. Then cut to the next scene at the fashion show, and he introduces her as the new princess. Honorary princess, mind you, but like, what kind of weird-ass grooming fantasy is happening now? Like, did they not think about that? Jesus Christ.
I think they didn't think about it because perhaps Fred Olin Ray is like a good man who doesn't think about things like that.
I think you might be right there. Jim Wynorski, he would think about shit like that, but Fred Olin Ray, no. So anyway, after all this talk of the fireworks factory, we have finally gotten to the fireworks factory, and that is the big fashion fest.
It's a small garden party.
A 6-foot-long runway with 25 people and 4 models. And they're all wearing, what, the Jacqueline Smith collection from Kmart?
Yes, they are.
High fashion.
And no theme or anything. It's just...
The theme is, look what we got at Ross Dress for Less.
The prince's job here is to introduce every model by name and kind of give a description of what they're wearing. So this is when the models are done, this is when he has the stage and the mic to bring up the honorary Princess Amy of Edgemore, give a few words about the spirit of Christmas, blah, blah, blah. Patrick's surprised because Dan Carson and Melanie had no idea. So we're kind of playing up like he's doing stuff, making stuff happen in the world. But somebody else has been scheming this entire time. Albert and Jill have a surprise of their own. Okay, so the setting up the scene, Patrick has Amy in his eye. She's like, he's picked her up. So, they're like, yay. So Jill comes up from behind, hands a card to Amy, because what's the little kid going to do? They're going to read the card. And she already loves Kristen and Patrick, so she's in on it. She's like, she's game. Amy
says, I can't read because of my brain cancer. I'm so sorry. Don't touch me. I'm a princess now. Keep your peasant hands off of me.
Somehow, Kristen is announced, but not before being manhandled and pulled to the side of the stage by Jill and Albert. So, like, Kristen does and does not want to be there.
How did she get here again?
So she must have wanted to be there, yet Jill and Albert have to kind of shove her onto stage, and she has a speech of her own. I could not really make sense of her speech. Something about, like, the meaning of charity. It wasn't inspiring. It was just her, like, word vomiting. And then she runs off stage. Yeah. Everybody in the audience is just kind of confused.
Yeah. All 15 people in the audience are really confused about this because they thought it was a fashion fest.
So Dan Carson, Melanie, the head of the PR firm, they follow Kristen. Dan offers her a job. And then Melanie's like, no, I'm offering her a job. So Kristen accepts Melanie's job offer of Junior VP of Strategic Marketing.
Like, junior to whom? There's nobody... Like, what's Jill's job?
We don't know.
I mean, it's a very long title.
Anyway, so that scene's done. Prince Patrick is not far behind. He offers an apology to Kristen, and they confess love for each other. Albert shows up with Amy and says, surprise! Amy's doctor says that Amy is no longer sick. It's a Christmas miracle.
We can't say remission because we didn't say she had cancer, but she's all better now. Trust us.
She's all better now. Amy has a sprig of mistletoe, which I think is not actually mistletoe, but whatever. She's got a sprig of some greenery. And because Albert is also carrying Amy, she holds it up over Kristen and Patrick's head. They kiss. Everyone claps.
People just like seeing two random whites kissing. That's just how it works, you know?
It wasn't even as if, like, there was any paparazzi. It's the Prince of Edgemore. He's royalty. Shouldn't there be some sort of, like, interest in royalty visiting the United States?
If I've learned anything from the 3 Prince-related Christmas movies we've watched in this podcast, it's that you have one guy follow you around, and then you're fine. This is fine. And there are roughly 5,000 kingdoms in Europe named Edgemore or Mountmore or Edgemont, or because we have Edgelord. It's edging. He's edging a lot, Fred Olin Ray. It was Edgemont in one of these, right? And this one's Edgemore, and then I really need a spreadsheet of all these Christmas royal
Yes,
names.
let's make that spreadsheet because there might be some sort of cosmic pattern that Fredo and Ray is trying to communicate
It's going to be
through these movies.
us with the mountain of mashed potatoes saying this is important. This means something.
Yes, exactly. This movie has kind of a postscript type of thing. I don't know if that's the right word, but we get the epilogue. It's an epilogue.
Oh, right. We see the future.
Here's what happens to these characters. Albert gets promoted to ambassador of Edgemore. Good for him. Dan and Melanie continue to do business together.
Yeah.
Good for them.
And then more than business, because, yeah, why not?
Amy grows up to be a doctor and she works at the children's hospital. Good for her.
She gets disbarred for overprescribing fentanyl. No, disbarred is not the right word. That's for lawyers. The medical bar.
Dishonorably discharged from the AMA.
Other than honorably discharged.
Patrick and Kristen both become dual citizens of Edgemore and the USA, which is fine for royalty, obviously. Totally fine. And they spend their lives doing charity fashion events.
Yep, that's what the world needs more of. And then they do a sit-down interview. They live at Oprah's house for a while, too, I think. That's
great.
What happens.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love that for them. I'm just like, really? Royalty of another country is going to become a dual citizen of the U.S. and, like, Edgemore is fine with this?
Can't you just have diplomatic immunity or whatever? Why do you need to be a citizen?
What about the line of succession? Is the royalty out in Edgemore? Are they trying to, like, get a different government and stuff? Like, what?
Well, Edgemore has really been pushing more towards a system of anarcho-capitalism. It's really no leaders what they go for there. It's basically the Madripoor of Europe is what's going on. So
Incredible. Located just outside of Stuttgart in Germany. Anything else to talk about with this movie?
I mean, this movie barely exists. I mean, this is basically a Mad Libs of scenes where you're just like, and name a fictional kingdom, Edgemore. And what's the event at the end? A fashion show.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, this is the same movie as A Princess for Christmas, except they threw in a little bit of mistaken identity, which doesn't matter at all.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie had the cancer kid instead of the kid whose dad was over in Afghanistan, so he had to steal mirrors.
This one had a cool-looking dog.
Yeah, man, that dog really should have paid off. Jesus, speaking of hedging, like, all these setups with no payoffs in Fredo and Ray movies, man, come on.
Maybe it'll pay off in a different Christmas movie.
I hope that when we've watched more of these, we'll see the extended Christmas cinematic universe, like, because Netflix was doing that for a while, but they were doing it very strangely, where some characters would appear from one Christmas movie in another Christmas movie, but in half of the Christmas movies, they'd also be watching Netflix and see those movies in there. So it's like this complicated, like, David Lynchian metaverse of things that cannot exist together. I once did it must have been a 90-minute long podcast with Kay Sawyer Paul up in Toronto, talking about the meta storylines of having the WWE live shows, them on Twitter, and them on e-reality shows at the same time, because all three of them were fictional, basically, but they all kind of acknowledged the other ones as fictional as well. So, like, you have the WWE divas at the time on the show, like Total Divas, talking about how, like, them planning the matches together and stuff like that. But then on the WWE show, where these are real fights between these people, allegedly, you had them promote Total Divas and talk about the storylines that were happening on Total Divas, where they were, like, bickering over something else. And all of those things were filmed, like, 3 months before and happening in current time with the WWE. And then on Twitter, you had people using their real names and doing some real tweets and some storyline tweets about, like, oh gosh, I hate this person, even though I ride in a car with them on this other show, but don't pay attention to that. And you really need, like, a flow chart to understand these things. But anyway, that's what I'm hoping for. This is what the best thing that can come out of the Christmas Gauntlet is we discover that, Edgemore appears next to Rosemont or wherever the fuck else these kingdoms are at the Edgemore horizon.
It's time to rate this movie.
All right. I will make you go first with, how Christmassy is this movie?
That's a great question. I was thinking about that question while watching this movie, and it was a lot more Christmassy than the last one we watched. I really responded to actual LA in Christmas time being like done up. Something that really helped was that there was minimal focus on the palm trees, a lot of focus on all the lights and the big red ribbons around buildings, which is kind of epic. It's cool. And the street lights that were chandeliers. And a lot of those establishing scenes were done at night because that's when lights really like pop. So it was getting that darkness. Another thing was at the dinner scene where they have their almost first kiss. The restaurant, also dentist's office, had deep burgundy walls and a lot of Christmas decor and those like warm white lights. That's just like peak Christmas for me. That being said, there's no snow. We're at a fashion show scheduled on December 23rd for reasons.
Yep.
They tried to dress it up with like a scene where Kristen makes cookies, but those cookies were store-bought.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Like, they had a bunch of, like, Keebler soft batch cookies on a tray, and they were immediately taking them off the tray, and they're, like, not soft or anything like that. They're just cold cookies on a plate.
Yes, and the character is like, wow, with baking skills like these, you'll be a great wife someday. And I was like, okay, it's one thing to have cookies on a prop. It's a whole other situation, have those cheap cookies be held up as, like, a character achievement in baking. I don't remember what I rated the last one.
I think you said 3, which is pretty low considering it was like the entire plot was Christmas driven.
Well, it wasn't Christmas Eve.
It wasn't Christmas Eve. Yeah, you're going by feel. You're going by feel. I see this.
Yeah. I think this one, I give it maybe a 5.5.
Wow. Bold statements, Mare.
Because it was a lot more Christmassy than the last movie, but you're making everybody work on December 23rd. Like, come on.
Okay. I see. Yeah, you're going by
families anywhere around here.
Yeah, so you're judging it by Christmas vibes, and I dig it.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Okay. Well, how about you? What's the effort here?
5. Straight down the middle of the road. Like, it's like, we've got to film this scene. Let's film this scene. We're done. Okay, next.
Love that. Rolling right into quality / production value.
I mean, we have, 4 locations in this?
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to say that Michael Pare was there for about 3 hours of filming. You are in the inside of a dentist's office the entire time. Like, the fashion show is like, I would have preferred a reverse shot to stock footage of a crowd instead of the, like, 5 people they picked out of the Home Depot parking lot and said, here's $20. You don't have to build anything. You just have to stand around and watch a fashion show. Did I give this a rating yet? Because 4. The rating's 4.
4?
It's 4.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. There you go. Did it make sense?
4. It's fine. This is, and I notice this problem a lot with bigger movies and movies that I've watched recently, but this is a very much, and then this happened sort of movie, instead of a, this happened, however, that caused this to happen, or therefore.
Right.
So, yeah.
Agreed. And rounding it up, was this movie entertaining?
I'm gonna say 6.5. 6. I'm gonna say 6. I was gonna go 6.5 because this movie is, it's fine. Every individual scene is just competent enough to pass for a real movie, but also just stupid enough to make fun of with somebody. So, like, if you're riffing a movie with friends, this is like a low-level one that's pretty easy to do. It doesn't take advanced skill, and it's not as punishing as a movie like, Things or something like that. But yeah, it's just fun to goof on this movie and say inappropriate things during it, which I may have been doing. So.
Wonderful. All right. Well, that was A Christmas in Royal Fashion.
It sure was.
What's next?
Let's see. The next movie we have is 5.3 on IMDb, which is a lot of these movies are about 5.3 on IMDb. And it is called The Christmas Gift. And this one might have a little high concept stuff going on. I'm just going to tease it there.
Oh my goodness.
It might be evocative of a certain other rom-com, but we'll have to wait until next time to find out.
This really is a horror podcast now.
Yeah, yep. Only the horrors for us. But I will tell you, the big star of next week's film is Michelle Trachtenberg.
Oh, shit. Great. Awesome. Can't wait.
Yeah.
All right. Well, until next time.
I've been Kennedy.
I've been Meredith.
And I'll remain Kennedy. All right. I'm going to hit that stop button if I can find it.
I've got an explanation. Okay.
Okay.
I just finished reading this book called Bury Your Gaze. And I don't want to spoil things because it would be a huge spoiler. But I think anybody who reads Bury Your Gaze is going to have a really good idea of what's going on with the Netflix Christmas cinematic universe. Going Over Our Freds was created and produced by us, Michael Kennedy and Meredith Halsey.
Our theme was composed and performed by Justin Nozick. Find more music for him at Bandcamp. Search for The Plague Physicians.
Artwork by Michael Kennedy. Special thanks to everyone who helped make the season possible, including the friends and family who let us watch these movies instead of this year's Academy Award nominees. And thank you for listening.
If you'd like to hear more from us, subscribe to Going Over Our Freds on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter at Goof Podcast, and find us on Instagram at Going Over Our Freds.
This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. For questions, comments, and complaints, email us at goingoverourfreds@gmail.com.
Thanks.